Last weekend, I made a video looking at the best 11 in the Premier League not to have registered a single Premier League appearance this season. A lot of you asked for a similar video looking at Premier League players who have featured in every one of their team's games this season, which is exactly what I'm going to do. What with this being the People's Channel and all. To be clear, the players don't have to have played every single minute of their team's Premier League campaigns this season, but they do have to have appeared in every game. For 16 of the Premier League clubs, that means 29 league appearances this season. Meanwhile, for Man City, Arsenal, Sheffield United and Aston Villa, it is only 28. The 11 is based on each player's performances this season, in my opinion, not their overall talents. Here is the Premier League team of the season, made up of only players who have played in every one of their team's games. Goalkeeper, Nick Pope. Just as there were more goalkeepers who had played 0 minutes in the Premier League this season than players in any other position, there are more ever-present players between the sticks than players in any other position as well. Goalkeepers are rarely rotated, and almost half of the Premier League's first-team goalkeepers have played in every one of their team's games this season. Everyone will have their own opinions as to who has been the most impressive this season, but of the 9, of whom I will mention later on, my choice is Nick Pope. Pope broke through at Turf Moor in the 2017-18 campaign, but didn't play a single Premier League game last season after dislocating his shoulder in the Europa League against Aberdeen. Pope has returned this season, and if anything, reached yet new heights. He's played in every minute of Burnley's Premier League campaign this season, and along with Dean Henderson, he's applying real pressure on Jordan Pickford for that England #1 shirt. Right back, Trent AlexanderArnold. It's a no-brainer at right back, given that Trent AlexanderArnold has, in my opinion, been the best right back in the division this season. George Baldock is the only other right back to have played in every one of his team's games this season, and he warrants a mention, but AlexanderArnold's output, in terms of assists, continues to amaze. As well as being a key cog in the best defence in the Premier League this season, AlexanderArnold has made 12 assists, the second most of any player in the division, trailing only Kevin De Bruyne. Centre-back, Virgil van Dijk. I said Liverpool have the best defence in the Premier League this season, and one of the things that makes their defence so formidable is the fact that they have such a good understanding due to having a really settled backline. 2 of Jurgen Klopp's back 4 are featured in every one of the Reds' Premier League games this season, and joining Trent AlexanderArnold is Virgil van Dijk. The PFA Player of the Year last season, Van Dijk has maintained his standards this season, and he has been the outstanding centre-back in the division yet again. Whilst Joe Gomez, Joel Matip and Dejan Lovren often look comfortable alongside Van Dijk, I think there are legitimate question marks with regards to how any of those 3 would cope in a pairing. Thankfully for Jurgen Klopp, he hasn't had to find out this season, with his star Dutchman featuring in all 29 of the club's league games. Centre-back, Jonny Evans. There are a handful of excellent centre-backs who've played in every one of their team's outings this season, all of whom I will come to later on. I've no doubt that people will make cases for some of the others, but I don't think Jonny Evans' contribution this season has yet been fully appreciated. After Liverpool, Leicester City have the best defence in the Premier League, having conceded just 28 goals in 29 games. Jonny Evans is Leicester's only outfield player to have featured in all 29 of the team's outings this season, and whilst his centre-back partner, Çağlar Söyüncü, has rightly received plenty of plaudits, Evans is arguably even more important to Leicester than the Turkish international. The Foxes picked Evans up for just £3.5 million following West Bromwich Albion's relegation, this coming only 12 months after Evans had been linked with a £40 million move to Manchester City. The 32-year-old has proved to be an outstanding signing by the Foxes, and one is routinely reminded as to why Alex Ferguson couldn't believe Manchester United sold Evans following his retirement. Left back, Ender Stevens. There is only one left back who has been an ever-present for their team this season, and he's also been one of the best left backs in the division, so this one was pretty straightforward. I sang Ender Stevens' praises a lot last season as Sheffield United won promotion from the Championship, but naturally, his talents have only really started to be appreciated now that he is performing in the Premier League. Defensively adept, whilst maintaining a threat down the left flank, Stevens is a late bloomer in many respects, but the 29-year-old looks entirely at home in the Premier League now. Defensive midfield, Declan Rice. It was a tough one in central midfield, and I will explain my omissions later on, but for now, I'll just explain why Declan Rice makes the cut. There was a lot of talk about Declan Rice last season, and that seems to have dulled down a little this season. I think a lot of people assume that's because he perhaps hasn't been as impressive, but I don't believe that's the case. West Ham have certainly struggled in the Premier League this season and still face a fight to avoid relegation, but Rice has continued to impress at the London Stadium. Still only 21 and still living in the Irish guy's head rent-free, Rice is the only man to have played in every minute of every game for West Ham this season. Rice has averaged 2.1 interceptions and 3 tackles per game this season, the most and second most of any West Ham player respectively, and if the Hammers were to go down this season, I think they'd struggle to keep hold of him. Defensive midfield, João Moutinho. Luis Figo and Cristiano Ronaldo are the only men with more caps for Portugal than João Moutinho, so it didn't take a genius to note that he was a seriously smart addition by Wolves following the club's promotion from the Championship in 2018. Surprisingly, Nuno Espirito Santo's men have a handful of players who've played in every single one of their league games this season, and I say surprisingly because Wolves have had an awfully large number of fixtures to contend with given their Europa League commitments as well. Moutinho is one of those to have played in every single game, age 33, and he shows few signs of fatigue. Moutinho has been among the most creative midfielders in Europe this season and among the best midfielders in the Premier League, so there's no way I could leave him out of this 11. Right wing, Danny Ings. This is the position I'm least pleased about in this entire 11 for obvious reasons, since Danny Ings quite clearly isn't a right winger. No one who has played predominantly as a right winger this season has played in every Premier League game for their team, just so we're clear, but there are a couple of left wingers who have. Wilfred Zaha and Todd Cantwell are the men in question, along with the player who starts on the left wing in this 11, and I could have picked either one of them. Ultimately, I took the executive decision that since none of them are right wingers, and Ings has been by far the most impressive this season, I would shoehorn him onto the right flank. Ings hasn't started every Premier League game this season, but he has featured in every one, starting 23 and coming on as a substitute in 6. A tally of 15 goals makes him the 5th highest scorer in the Premier League this season, and the highest in this 11, with more goals than the likes of Sadio Mane, Marcus Rashford and Raheem Sterling. Left wing, Dwight McNeil. I said there were 3 left wingers who have played in every game this season, and seeing off Wilfred Zaha and Todd Cantwell to earn a place in this 11 is Burnley sensation Dwight McNeil. McNeil became a pretty regular fixture under Sean Dyche last season, but the 20-year-old Rochdale native has become indispensable this term. He tops Burnley's assist charts jointly with Ashley Westwood this season, in addition to having scored a couple of goals. The stats only tell half the story though, since McNeil brings a touch of class and flair to a traditionally very functional Claret side. Elegant on the ball and comfortable under pressure, McNeil has real potential, and to be playing in every single game in the Premier League at the age of 20 is an achievement deserving of recognition. Centre forward, Roberto Firmino. Liverpool have 3 players who have played in all 29 of their Premier League games this season, and in a season as remarkable as the one the Reds have enjoyed this term, it should come as very little surprise that all 3 make this 11. Roberto Firmino has started 27 Premier League games this season and has been introduced from the bench in the 2 he didn't start in, contributing with 8 goals and 7 assists. Just like McNeil though, anyone who's watched Liverpool play in the last few seasons knows the stats only tell half the tale when it comes to Firmino. The Reds' tireless and selfless number 9 is renowned for his work rate and creativity, as well as being incredibly inventive on the ball. As a defensive or pressing forward, as the football manager players among you might describe him, there are few finer in world football, so Firmino was an obvious inclusion here. Centre forward, Raul Jimenez. Rounding off this 11, which essentially features 3 centre forwards, given Danny Ings out wide on the right, anyone who expected any second season lag in performance levels from Raul Jimenez has been proven emphatically wrong. The well-rounded Mexican number 9 scored 17 goals in his debut campaign at Molineux, including 13 in the Premier League, becoming one of the greatest fantasy Premier League bargains in recent memory. This season, Jimenez has been even more prolific, netting 22 times in all competitions and 13 times in the Premier League, with 9 league games still to come. Jimenez didn't come cheap, setting Wolves back a reported €38 million, but he's worth a lot more than that to them now. He leads the line with real presence and class, and in addition to his 22 goals, he's also made 9 assists this season. So that is it for my 11, but I will quickly reel off the honourable mentions. The players to have played in every Premier League game their team has played this season, but not feature, were Ben Foster, Connor Cody, David De Gea, Harry Maguire, James Tarkowski, James Ward-Prowse, Joe Linton, Jordan Pickford, Kasper Schmeichel, Leander Dendoncker, Martin Dubravka, Mason Mount, Matt Ryan, Ruben Neves, Rui Patricio, Todd Cantwell, Wilfred Zaha, Bernd Leno, Chris Basham, George Baldock, Jack O'Connell, Oliver Norwood, and Ben Mee. Of the aforementioned players, Kasper Schmeichel, Martin Dubravka and perhaps even David De Gea deserve consideration, but I think Nick Pope has outperformed all three this season. At centre-back, Connor Cody and Jack O'Connell in particular have had very impressive campaigns yet again, but obviously Virgil van Dijk was a no-brainer, and I think Johnny Evans has been superb for Leicester. Elsewhere, Ruben Neves is unfortunate, so too is James Ward-Prowse, and Oliver Norwood as well in fact. Not to mention Mason Mount, who I'm sure plenty of people will feel should have been accommodated. Perhaps I could have dropped Dwight McNeil, gone with a 4-3-3 to make Danny Ings a little more at home up top, and brought in a Mount, Neves or Ward-Prowse in a three-man midfield. There are plenty of what-ifs, and as always, do not hesitate to leave your own views, or even your own 11s, down in the comments, along with any future video ideas, as you always do. A big thank you to you all for watching, do give us a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to stay up to date with the channel in the future, why not subscribe and turn on notifications for HITC Sevens.